Hey everyone, welcome back to Adrian's Digital Basement. As you can see here, the pet's on my bench. It's time to start cleaning this thing. Let's get right to it. My favorite thing for cleaning the surface of computers is glass cleaner. I really like Windex. If this isn't available in your country, I'm sure you have similar products. It just does a great job of getting the grit off, and yet it doesn't damage plastics and things like that. Of course, a good microfiber cloth is perfect for cleaning computers as well. For very stubborn scratches and scuff marks, I use Magic Eraser, which is these foam pads that are slightly abrasive. These do a good job of getting marks off, but if you rub too hard, it will take paint and it will make plastic shiny, so you have to be careful with these. I think the first thing I'm going to do is take the top off and take the motherboard out so I can give that a good clean, because it's going to need some time to dry. Let's take the back of the monitor off, because I need to disconnect the power cable that goes into the monitor first. On later PETs, the back of the monitor is not something that's removable, so you have to actually disconnect the wires from the transformer directly, and then you can dismount the monitor. There are some bolts inside that hold it down. Holy dusty Batman, that is a lot of dust in here. So I'm gonna clearly need to disassemble this and give this a good clean as well. I think this connector here is the one that goes into the case. So I'm going to disconnect this. Well, that's funny. Look at that peg there, but that's actually by design. There's a gap in the connector. And then I need to try to feed this through here. So the top cover is completely freed from the bottom, so I can move this aside for now and take the motherboard out. All right, this grimy motherboard. It's got some plastic standoffs and it's got some screws. So I think we have a standoff here, here, and there. Alright, the motherboard came out pretty easily. So there's something that came up in the comments on my last video for the PET that I want to talk about right now. A lot of people were chastising me for powering this thing up without first testing the voltage rails. That's normally not a bad suggestion, but the people who thought I was stupid actually just don't understand the way the PET is designed. So the way the power supply on the PET works is not like your normal computer. It goes through this mains transformer here and then actually feeds through the power cable directly onto the motherboard, and this is just AC power. It gets rectified by some diodes here and then sent back off the motherboard to this capacitor. From there, it goes back onto the motherboard, and then it goes through these voltage regulators that are on these heat sinks. And this is what generates the power rails. So there is no way to actually test the power rails on the PET with this cable disconnected. The power supply is right here on the motherboard integrated, and it's not something you can separate from the chips. Honestly, the thing that is going to fail are these voltage regulators here, but there's no way for me to test them. So the motherboard is pretty dusty and I don't really have a good way to clean it, so I'm just going to use water. I'm going to use warm water and then I'm going to use alcohol to finish it up. So we'll get the water up to temperature here. Alright, I'm putting it on the spray mode. I'm just putting the motherboard right under there. Well, that looks about 1 billion times better. It's quite amazing to actually be able to see this motherboard for the first time. It's in really nice shape. Alright, so yeah, just use the brush to kind of get the little final bits of dirt off. So we're going to shake as much water off as we can. I'm going to take a little piece of wire and I'm going to tie it around this hole here. And what I'm going to do is I have a little wire strung across the rafters here. I'm going to hang the motherboard with this clip onto that wire, and since I have a little knot in there, it will prevent it from sliding off and crashing down into the wash basin. Now, it's sitting here, it will dry off, but I'm going to take some spray bottle here. This has 99% IPA, isopropyl alcohol in here, and I'm going to spray it all over the board from the top down. And that should help kind of wash away or rinse away any of the water that's on the board. Because, you know, the IPA will evaporate pretty quickly, and I don't want the water to kind of linger around and cause corrosion. This will just drip into the basin, not to mention if there's any more dirt or dust, hopefully the IPA will help wash it away. All right, and I'm gonna let this just dry off and for several hours at least, might be 24. Now I can focus on the rest of the computer. Well, for the bottom of the case, probably the best thing for me to do is just try to remove this transformer and cap, and then I can give this thing a nice clean wipe down. Did that come out of the transformer? Weird, it's not wet or anything. I think the best thing to do for the top cover here is to take the monitor off and attack that separately than this base. And I can probably remove the keyboard and the cassette drive to really give this top cover a good clean. It's one PET 2001-8 keyboard. Very dirty one. Not quite sure how to get the monitor apart. So I think I'm just gonna start taking out all the screws I can. See if I can release it, free it from its enclosure. That is one filthy, filthy PCB. Alright, so I can't pull the CRT out this way. The opening is too small on the back because there are these kind of necks down and there's these little tabs. Yeah, because if I lift the CRT up, we get stuck. So the front plastic, the blue part, I can see is taped on with double-sided tape. That there's got to be a way. There has got to be a way that this thing comes apart. How on earth? What if I have to change the CRT? There's got to be a way to get this out. The tabs themselves are on the implosion band. Does it somehow fit through this opening here? Well, I pulled the board out. The CRT is unmounted and it's just sort of resting in there. This will allow me to clean around the edges of the CRT and down here into the bezel. I'm at a loss on how this fully comes apart, so I'm going to clean this as is best I can. And if you know how I can get the CRT out, please post that in the comments. So some of you may not be familiar with the tape drive that these original PETs use. As you can see, it's just a normal audio cassette recorder. There's even a speaker grill here. For some reason, there's a giant notch cut out of the case here. This was done after the fact. There's the battery compartment. It even takes C cells, although the contacts are missing. There's no badge for whoever made this particular unit. And then this wire just sort of comes out from the inside, and this is the data connection. And for some reason it has this little tag on here. It has a -2 on one side, and the other side says load equals 0, verify to number 1042. And they just sort of attached these extra brackets to hold it in, and I can actually see the mechanism through here. I don't know what was there originally. This is a pretty simple one. You just lift it, and for some reason, I guess at some point the little window got lost or broken, and there's this kind of very melted piece of plastic in here that looks like it has some tape holding it in. So I don't know if that's original Commodore or what exactly, but I'm gonna try to clean this up a little bit. I have no idea if this works, and probably needs a new belt. Alright, well, the keyboard is next. This thing is quite dirty. I'm just afraid to take the keys off. I'm gonna have to take the PCB off because none of the keys are working, which I assume is just because it's dirty underneath. It looks very much similar to Commodore 64. I wonder if these are screws that are missing. Two right here. I think for now I'm just gonna clean it with the cloth and some Windex just to kind of at least make it less disgusting, and then I'm going to have to take it apart and just see how it actually works. That's a lot better. Just cleaning, it's actually kind of easy to clean because the keys are so organized into a grid, so you can just go up and down. You know, there's definitely some wear. Look at the enter key, and some of the keys are more worn than others just from typing, like the N key there. Same over here, like the 0 key. Overall, this looks a million times better, so I'm happy with that. Looks nice. Time to take the PCB off and take a look behind. The plunger has a different arrangement than anyone I've ever seen. It's really dirty under here. So I would probably explain why there's no good contact. Here's the PCB, just dirty, no corrosion or anything, so that's good. I'm going to take some IPA and I'm going to use a Q-tip and I'm just going to rub each contact. We're first going to see if that helps. And if it doesn't, I'm going to need to get some very light grit sandpaper and just sand down these rubber contacts. I've had to do that on my other pets. It was the only way to get the keyboards working again. But now they work very reliably since doing that. Alright, this is dried for a little while. Let's put it back together. So when I took the keyboard apart, these two screws weren't installed, and I just tried to install a screw into there just to test, and the hole appears stripped. So I'm wondering if there's a way I can kind of clamp this, or maybe I can try and find another screw that works in there. I don't want to risk cracking this plastic frame though. Okay, so I took two screws from an old Commodore 64 keyboard. They're similar, but a little longer. Alright, so it does grip, but it kind of stops turning, and I don't want to force it in, so I'm just going to put a little washer on it. So I took a little bit of RF shield from a Commodore 64 and I punched a hole in it. I cut little strips out, then I punched a hole, and that makes a good little washer. Okay, so here is the clean base of the PET after washing the other day. And here is the motherboard that is dried after I washed this and did it with IPA. I've also lightly sanded and put deoxide on all of these connectors so they look really nice and shiny now. Now I haven't touched any of the chips, and I guess before I put it in the base, I was going to put it in the base for some testing. I'm going to reseat all the socketed chips and spray deoxide in the sockets, and maybe do a little sandpaper on the pins of the chips just to make sure they're all making good contact before I mount this in, because it'll be a little awkward to get some of these chips out when this is in the case. Well, hopefully I have the footage I was just recording. The camera has system error on the screen. This stupid camera has been doing this lately. I have to take the battery out to reset it. So I ran into my first issue. This is one of the RAM chips. Can you see? It's missing two of the pins. Now the funny thing is, it's definitely, the pins didn't break off in the socket. They've either been cut off or they broke off, or at some other point. They're not stuck in here. Yeah, there's nothing in there. But the funny thing is, this might still actually work. I'm going to use my marker and I'm just going to put a little circle on it. So yeah, very strange. Okay, I've reseated all the chips, scrubbed the sockets, put deoxit, straightened any pins that were bent, and there were several pins that were bent, and they weren't bent from me taking them out because I took them straight out. They were already bent. So this was the chip that had those two clipped pins. So let's just test to see if it makes... Okay, yeah, so pin 1 has continuity with the socket next to it. Let's see if it has continuity. I'm trying to test without putting any pressure on the pin. Yeah, the way the chips sit so deeply into the sockets, the socket contacts actually touch the thicker top part of the legs. It's just so strange. So the snipped pins actually doesn't really cause any problem, at least that I can tell. Alright, sorry about the furnace noise. I have this, I think, set up in a way for testing. Keyboard is connected, it's just sitting over there. Monitor is connected, I have the power connector on the back plugged in. Power supply connector is connected. Motherboard is in, all the chips have been reseated. But together, let's plug this in, see what happens. So I don't actually know if it's on right now, and there is a power LED on the motherboard, I guess. But there's no speaker, so there's no way for me to hear a sound. So I'm just going to check to see if the filament on the CRT is glowing. I don't think it is. So let's turn this on. It made a little noise. Oh, look! There it is! So immediately I have one observation. No more jittering, no more flickering. Someone pointed out in the last video that it says 6770 bytes free. That is not the full 8K of RAM. So I think there is a bad chip here. I think it was this one of these two right on the top here is bad. Everything else so far appears to work. I need to see if the keyboard is typing at all. Okay, does the keyboard type? Oh, there's a K. Look at that. Okay, so J, no. Okay, so far K is the only key that works. Well, that is certainly a better sign than it was before. 0 keys working before. For the RAM, I'm gonna move around a couple chips here. Alright, well, you see the PET is running now with 7167 bytes free, which is the full memory complement for this 8K model. And I swapped the RAM chips that I suspected were bad into one of the video RAM sockets. And if you notice that right now I have this errant parentheses right here. So that is the bad chip. I put an X on it. It's currently in the video RAM socket, but with the video RAM chip switched over into this space, we now have the full RAM complement. Alright, well that's going to be it for part 2. So far things are going great. The computer is now stable, no more glitching. Got to order that RAM chip. In part 3, I'm going to work on the keyboard. We're going to get that fixed. The cassette drive, probably open that up, check it out inside. It's probably got a bad belt, who knows. Maybe I'll see about making that work. Going to try to bend the top cover back into shape. The little corner is folded in just ever so slightly so it binds up on the chassis here. So I'm going to use a rubber mallet and some wood, try to fix that. Put it all back together and hopefully load a couple programs on here from my phone through my modified data set. So I hope you found this interesting. I'd love a thumbs up if you did, and of course thumbs down if you hated it. Comments and questions in the comment section below, and subscribe for more videos. We'll see you next time. Bye.